were protagonists in our own right. We were not, unlike the films that were being made at that time, we didn't exist in relation to another man. তাহলে আমার গরিব বর সন্ধ্যের আগে বাড়ি ফিরে আসবে, তখন আমার কোনো অনুশোচনা থাকবে না। I mean, it's just too divine, it's too wonderful to just play on words. During Apur Sansar, when Apur was going for interviews, Bongshida kept delaying the shot. She said, "Ek minute Manik, ek minute Manik." And Mahanagar was getting very fed up because he had to finish the shoot. He was waiting for an umbrella. So from Devi, she becomes a Rakhushi. So either you are a Devi or you're a Dine. So that is anybody, any woman who shows any kind of resistance or any kind of agency, he would say, "Na, Manik orokom noy, tome bhul bujhcho." We would say, just to get him riled up, we would say some anti-Mahanagar thing. So Godard felt that anybody over 25 ceases to be attractive, a woman. And I say crawl and you crawl, and I say jump and you jump. Nobody really could live within that budget. Mahanagar charged only for his screenplay and direction. So Shubhruto and Bongshida couldn't live on that. So they had to part company. So I can understand somebody coming and asking for an autograph. But if I have to catch a flight, or if I have a stomachache at that time, or I'm just painting my nails because my shot starts in 10 minutes time, if I say no, that person will immediately be hurt. So sometimes we are not even human beings, for them.
Hello everyone, welcome to Filmography. Hope all of you are doing well and keeping safe. As you know, this year, we here at Filmography are celebrating the birth centenary year of the genius author, Mr. Satyajit Ray. Today is perhaps one of the most special days for our channel. As I speak to you all, I feel like I'm having a sugar rush and I'm finding it difficult to contain my excitement. Our guest today has been a regular collaborator of Satyajit Ray, having worked with him in 5 different films. Making her debut at the young age of 14, she immediately captured the attention of Bengal, India, and eventually the entire world. She is the recipient of 2 national awards and 2 Filmfare Awards. She has worked as the chairperson of the Central Board of Film Certification from 2004 to 2011. She has also been a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador from 2005. It's an honor to welcome Padma Bhushan Sharmila Tagore ji to Filmography. Thank you very much, ma'am, that you have come here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It feels surreal.
Thank you for inviting me. What did you call me? I was what of Satyajit Ray? You said something.
Regular collaborator.
Regular collaborator. Yes. But it's so strange because that's after Mahanagar passed away. I remember I was in Patodi and there was a World Bank kind of a conference going on there. And Ila Bhatt just walked in and I happened to be just outside. And she gave me the news that, Sharmila, Mahanagar has passed away. And I kind of remained normal, and went through the day. And at night when I went to bed, and there was a lot of mosquitoes and things in Patudi, it's a village. So I was sleeping under a mosquito net. And then the thought struck me, the reality of it all, that Mahanagar is no more, that I will never be able to go to that house and see him in that, that chair, that's sitting on that chair, that iconic photograph that everybody has seen. And then later, in fact, a week later, San Francisco called me and said, will I go there and accept the Lifetime Achievement Award that they were giving him at the film festival on his behalf, on Mahanagar's behalf. So, I had to go by. It was a very long sort of travel. And I went there. And, it was such an emotional moment to get up on stage and to think that, when I met Mahanagar, I was a kid. I was a very young person. And Manikda kind of held me by my hand, my every way, to direct me, and opened so many doors for me, so many opportunities for me. And I was standing there and speaking about Manikda. So when I stood there for a good 1 minute, I couldn't speak. I was so emotional. And since then, I have been, quite vocal about Manikda. So when you said that, it kind of triggered the that side of it all, whatever you call it, the funny side or how can I mean, look at that photograph behind you.
Yeah.
To talk about Manikda, Manikda who's so all engulfing, So I still have that feeling for him in the sense that I don't feel myself qualified, talking about Manikda. So every time I do, I feel a little bit of hesitation. Like I've seen you, interviewing Dhritiman and others who are like equal, almost equal. They can talk about Manikda in a little bit of a detached fashion and analyze his work. And I try. It's writing is easier, but when I talk about him, I get a little overwhelmed by the feeling. So sorry for such I know this was not in the script. I mean,
This is absolutely wonderful that actually the opening statement actually triggered some emotion in you, and actually all of us feel that emotion to an extent. As we are Bengalis and Indians, we can understand, and you have been so close to him for so many years. We can totally understand. If I may start with the first question, the women in Satyajit Ray films are immensely fascinating. Like starting from the old Indira Thakuran in Pather Pachali to the young Ratan in Postmaster, most of them are not really conventional women. Each have strong characteristics of their own. As I've said, we have been raised protagonists for the most number of times, playing unique characters in each of the 5 films. If you could tell us what you feel about the woman in Satyajit Ray film in general, including the characters that you have played.
I feel very strongly about it. I feel quite overwhelmed again by the characters that he gave us, because we were protagonists in our own right. We were not, unlike the films that were being made at that time, we didn't exist in relation to another man, as a wife, as a mother, we were like in the Thakurun, as you started, was a character, totally involved with her survival, completely immune to all insults, looking greedily at Sarbojoya when she was eating, when she's eating, like Lobhi, and then, ready to pick up her bed and, bedding and everything and go away to somebody else's house to be insulted again, but totally involved with her survival. And yet when she's eating, I don't know, it's like, I noticed it after about 3 or 4 viewings of Pather Panchali. When she's eating, but when she's washing her hands, she's pouring the rest of the water to a sapling, on a sapling. So, it's just a little thing. You miss it, you get it. That was Manikda, so that at that age, with her own living, she's yet involved in something else being alive, So that kind of, in that very short thing, you can understand that even in that old body, there is something still alive, that spark is there. And her relationship with her grandchildren, brings out the best in her. So that, and then you see Sarbojoya, completely ravaged by poverty, and yet the fortitude, the dignified way she faces everything. And there is not a hint of self-pity. At that time, you're seeing things like Mughal-e-Azam and Mother India. There is so much glorification of fortitude. Here, there is no glorification. She's just living a simple life as a mother, as a wife, as somebody who's somehow trying to manage the house, And then later, when in Aparajito, she doesn't write and say that, come home, I'm ill.
Yeah.
Upu would have come. She's advised that why aren't you writing to him? But she doesn't. Not because of her pride, but because she's got a sense of self. Because she feels that my son knows what is happening. He's been here, he's seen it. And if he doesn't care and if he's involved with his own life, so be it. I'm not going to pull him away from anything. So that, then Aruti in Mahanagar. I mean, look at at some levels, I like Mahanagar even better than Charulata, because her transformation, the first time she goes to, work, she runs away because she's so timid. The first time she's coming out of the house. And yet, she develops her confidence, and there is a long shot or mid shot that she's crossing the road. And the way she's walking says it all, that, I'm confidently entering an office. I confidently talk to my boss, or I'm selling some product confidently. At the same time, it doesn't take away from her feminine self or her duty towards her in-laws, her husband, her sister-in-law. So all those lovely things are there, but you see the slight change in that hierarchy when the mother-in-law gives her the matha, so that's her thing. So there are so many little things that you can discover. The boss gives her a lift home. So the man is now kind of losing his confidence, but not because of her. And she throws the lipstick out of the window. She's not asserting her, superiority in any way. Or she doesn't want to change. She doesn't want to disrupt the balance of And the last scene, when she stands up, she has the confidence to stand up for the injustice that is meted out to her colleague, which she thinks is, she can't accept the injustice of it all. And she says it, and she leaves her job. And then she leaves. And when she comes down and she sees her husband is waiting, and, they have this chat, and both of them are now without a job. And she looks up and she says, Eto boro shohor, such a big city, won't we get some? At least one of us will get something. So that parity now, it doesn't really matter who's earning and who's that, that dissolves. So in every film, he brings that parity between man and woman. And also shows that a sexual desire or longing is just not a man's department. Even a woman can feel that, which we see in Charulata, which we see in Orone Din Ratri, that Joya. So that many characters, he doesn't take away the feminine qualities from a woman. So they don't become harsh. Even in Kapurush, she's very pragmatic. She's accepted a certain life. It is, Shaumitra's character who cannot accept. She is all right, And that lovely scene, where she's walking up and down, when he asked for a sleeping tablet or, just before or after. She's walking, and that little gap between the door and the light is on, and you can see that she's... So, but even there, she doesn't come out in the open, and because her husband is nice and have supported her, and she's not prepared to leave him. So like that, and even in mine, with the characters I have played in Nayak, in Shrimabadho, conscience, as many people have said, played the conscience of and Nayak is got, we can talk about it later, but they're also, or perhaps we'll talk about it when you ask about Nayak and Shrimabadho, I'm sure you will later.
Yeah.
So I feel that his women characters will live on with us forever, because they are very strong, at the same time very feminine, and yet very inclusive. Very inclusive. In their effort of going ahead, they are not really leaving the man behind. It is not a man versus woman thing. It is inclusive, and parity and dignity is all what she is asking.
Right. Yeah, that's so wonderfully put, ma'am. I mean, we have spoken about these so many times, but
there are a lot of critics there will raise their eyebrows or something, but that's how I perceive it. Yes.
yeah. Ma'am, we wanted to talk about the the epic scene of Apur Sansar. That scene where you and Soumitra Chatterjee, they're both waking up. There's this small banter, and then that cigarette packet, and then you are cooking. It kind of feels. I mean, there's so many movies with so many frames spent on the romance between that couple, but this particular scene in such a short time, the way it captures the love within that poverty, it's unparalleled, I believe. It's one of the epic scenes in the history of world cinema, I would say. If you can talk about that scene, how it was composed and shot.
It's wonderful that you say it, because I've seen Apur Sansar with audience like a fifth generation from the time it was made. And they all respond warmly to the romance of Apur Sansar. And despite the poverty, it is really heartening to see that.
Yeah.
So romance of Apur Sansar will never pall. And it starts with, those days, this is what Mahanagar has done, because it's really at that time Apur Sansar was made, it was unheard of that a young girl can get married, 13-year-old girl or a 12-year-old girl will get married. But she will not be allowed to leave the house alone with the man. Either she will stay back in her parental home, or she will go to another house where the Shashuri and Shushur will be there. Like setting up home, just the two of them, like a nuclear family of modern times, was a very new thing.
Yeah.
Yet this young girl, when they get there, makes it happen. I mean, she doesn't change the house, but she brightens up the little room of Apur. You start with the camera pans from the curtain, which is a floral curtain and a new curtain, hand stitched. So you can see the wife has already made a difference. And then they wake up and she, we've seen, it's a very, very, everybody has seen that. And it's, she unties that and she kind of slaps him. So instantly, there is a kind of parity. They're like friends, like Bondhu. They're not like, there's no hierarchy that I am a man and you're a woman. Nothing like that. Of course, we know that Apur is not like that. But even she is not like that. She's accepted her position as an equal partner. And then she's doing all the work, like from Unun Jalano and killing. I mean, as Sharmila Tagore, I couldn't kill that cockroach. But Aparna had no qualms about, So the determination, the strength, not fragile. I mean, she wasn't fragile. Despite her age, she could cope with everything. And not only that, when he was getting disheartened, she was inspiring him. When he asks her, Tomar kono অনুশোচনা হয় না? And she says, অত শক্ত কথা বুঝি না. And then he says, আফসোস বোঝো, আফসোস. And then whatever happens, and then he gets very upset and he's going out to look for a job. And Aparna brings him back and says that, shall I tell you? Shall I tell you what to do? Why don't you give up your job as a tuition? তাহলে আমার গরিব বর সন্ধ্যের আগে বাড়ি ফিরে আসবে, তখন আমার কোনো অনুশোচনা থাকবে না. I mean, it's just too divine. It's too wonderful to those play on words. I mean, he's playing the flute and he comes and sits on the chaukat and নিজের মনে, like it's in a dream, he says, আমি উৎসর্গ করব. And she says, কি স্বর্গ? To my wife. And she says, wife, মানে জানি. And he says, তুমি জানো না, আমি জানি. So, because before that, we are seeing that he's teaching her how to CAT, CAT, MAT, MAT, and she wants to, he's going to sleep and she wants to study more. Then again, look at that aspect, that even in Devi, so he underlines the importance of education, and particularly for female education. and very, very slightly done. I mean, it's not sort of preachy or it's not underlined, but it is, he's telling everybody that do take this forward. And Tomar Chokhe Ki Ache Bolo, Kajol, and then later the boy is called Kajol.
Kajol, yes.
It all adds up so beautifully written, those things, the dialogues. And they're not dialogues really. And they're watching a film together, they go out for a little outing, then he eats first and then she eats later. That montage scene of that fun and frolic. So it's just that such a short time. I don't know how much real time there is.
Exactly.
But it is completely, I mean, you cannot forget those scenes. They live with you forever.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that words, ar amar kono অনুশোচনা থাকবে না, the way you say, and
Yes.
it lights up Soumitra Chatterjee's face.
Because she knows the meaning, yes. But she's not as dumb as she's pretending to be.
Exactly. Yes. And you might have watched this film so many times, it still makes it makes me cry. It makes me feel like, I will want to believe in life once more.
Kajol, when he removes his mask, the mask, and then you see this beautiful face.
Yeah.
Such an expressive face. And then
Exactly.
The anger, when he says, Ami tomar baba, and he runs away, and then he accepts him as a bondhu, So, and the baba der buji tiki thake, when that sweet fellow says that, sweet vendor, and he says, baba to tikio dekha jay na. And he says, Baba buji tiki thake, Baba der. So it's just too beautiful word. I don't know. It just it just gets me every time.
Exactly.
This is, as you were explaining, ma'am, I could see the scenes go in front of my eyes, and it can only be explained as magic, nothing else. I mean,
magic.
Exactly. And he must have known everything. It must have been clear in his mind from, of course, from the writing to the execution and the editing and the final product must have been very clear. There was nothing extra or nothing added on. He knew what he was doing. So to grasp the whole thing, from conceiving it to the execution of it and then final projection on the screen, he had the ability to visualize all of it and without mistakes, because he didn't have the budget to do 6 takes.
Right.
It was always first take okay, or maybe second, or like when I couldn't light the matchbox,
Okay.
Because I don't know, I would do this. So it became like 5 or 6 takes. So finally somebody, it was Soumitra's suggestion, somebody lit the matchbox out of frame, and then I kind of brought it up. And so I think that was the only take that took a little time because Manita couldn't probably realize that I wouldn't be able to light a match because I've never lit one, and I was sort of, reacting to that. So I guess, with that kind of budget to make a film like this, because his competitors were Bergman, Kurosawa, look at their budget.
Exactly.
And his budget and his lights, his studio conditions, the load shedding, which came, of course, a little later. But during Shimabanthu, there was a lot of load shedding. So it was nothing short of brilliant, really.
Actually, ma'am, we have heard that later you went to Tala House where Apur Sansar was shot, and you had better realizations of the genius of Ray. If you could talk about that, please.
This Catherine Burge, in fact, the other day I called her and made contact finally. She was making a documentary on Soumitra, and she wanted me to go with her to this Tala House. And I visited that place 30 years later. And believe me, nothing had changed. That Koltala, the Angan, everything was exactly the same. And I climbed up the steps the steps hadn't changed, and I climbed up. And then we opened once we reached the top of the house, end of the staircase, you open a door and you step in. And, the roof. And instantly you see the blue sky. And you can understand that Apur would have thrived there because he was alone. All the cacophony of the city had kind of disappeared in the background, and he was under an open sky, and he was his own master. At least that's how I felt, kind of liberated from all that dingy and suffocating place. You were completely alone up there, and only the train, which was a metaphor, which was a leitmotif in his films. And that would be the only disturbance. And so I said, wow, the locations made such a lot of impact, So he chose every location, whether it was a tree or whether it was the train, whether it was Jalshaghar, the house of Jalshaghar. They were all eloquent. He made us aware of that space. Maybe not consciously, but at unconscious level, you were absorbing all this and it was enhancing the pleasure of watching.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll move over to Devi. And that's, personally speaking, that's my favorite performance of yours. It's unimaginable, at that age, the performance you got. But Devi, we have heard, when it released, there was a lot of controversies around that. There were people telling it is not showing the country in the right light. And there were so many things being told about it. And yet, around 60 years after Devi was released, we find the film so relevant even today. So if you could talk about that, the relevance of Devi for the society, for our society or our country.
See, Devi was a story of a young girl, unlettered girl, impossibly young, away from her home. And even her husband is away in the city studying. And her patriarch of the family, her father-in-law, one day has this dream where he believes that his daughter-in-law is the reincarnation of Kali. And he's a great devotee of Kali. And then he falls at her feet, etc. And the relentless worshipping starts. Yeah. So, Mahanagar is not judgmental about the patriarch. He's not calling him the villain of the piece.
Right.
That he's destroyed her life. But that belief that paralyzes all rational thought, and traps a woman into the space where the patriarchy has ordered for her. So, like I said, all of Mahanagar's heroines had agency, but Dayamoi didn't. Dayamoi was she was trained. She believed that the elders can't do anything wrong. Her father-in-law so learned. How can he be so wrong? And she doesn't have that. Although she knows, she's knows in her heart of hearts that she's not Devi. But she cannot assert that will to survive, She cannot fight back. She hasn't got it in her. And her sister-in-law, who's more educated, more rational, she also can't let go of years of orthodoxy. So they agree when the patriarch says no medical treatment for Khoka, and only Devi can save. Just take her there. So she agrees. But then the boy dies. So from Devi, she becomes a Rakhushi.
Yeah.
So either you're a Devi or you're a Dain. So that is any woman who shows any kind of resistance or any kind of agency is scripted. In Mahashruta Devi's, there are many stories like that in her books. So that is what happens to her. So that kind of mindset exists even today. In the name of honor, in the name of family, in the name of tradition, women continue to suffer injustice. You're not meant to speak loudly. You're not meant to be seen. Women talk too much. It's because women shouldn't talk. If they say anything, it's just too much. So the idea of a woman is to talk softly, walk softly. I mean, withdraw, just erase yourself, really, basically. And just do whatever you are ordered. So 65 miles or kilometers away from a main city, or even in that city, the, little pockets, this kind of mindset still exists. And superstition is thriving. I mean, if you see all these, what we see in television, all regional televisions are showing, it's just full of superstition. And everybody, even educated people, kind of can't stay away from superstition. It may not be a cat crossing the road or something, but if you say, "Ei angthita porle erokom hobe, ota korle orokom hobe," so you believe that because you clutch at straws, So I can quite believe that women continue to suffer because of this, because somehow they don't have a voice yet. It's much better than before.
Yeah.
But even now, they're expected to keep quiet and suffer whatever is given to them.
And I think the most harrowing part is when the character herself says, "Jodi ami Devi hoi, jodi tomar omongol hoy."
It's
such a paradox.
No, you feel how tragic is that? You're given a chance to escape.
Yes.
You cannot. And that shot of the Ma Durga Visarjaner por,
Yes.
it's there. And she says, "Jodi ami Devi hoi, tomar jodi kono okollan hoy." So his okollan is paramount in her mind, not her own survival. She cannot think without her family. She exists because of her family.
Right.
Only at the end she says, "Paliye jao, noile amake mere felbe." So that by that time she's completely alienated and lost her mind. So it is such a tragic subject. So and I really feel that it's a must-see for anyone who loves meaningful cinema.
Absolutely.
I just cannot remove that scene from my head when Chobi Vishwas's character falls at your feet and your toes curl. Your toes
end. Like one is totally devotional and blind with, and she is completely repulsed. So, the total, and how he shows it, because she's always in parda. She's got ghungat, on her face. So not with her expression, because every other place she's treated with big close-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So Manika is not shying away from close-ups.
Mm.
In this particular scene, he doesn't use her face. He uses the toes curling and the nails digging into the wall, which is far more effective. So how brutalized she's feeling. She wants to just dig herself into the wall somehow and disappear from there. The what is the word? Like attack on her body, on her being, is too much for her.
And I think there is this duality in these two scenes, where in one scene it's shown that you are tending to his feet, you are massaging with oil, and he's kind of he's kind of thinking as, "I need to take care of this lady, I need to see for her well-being." And the other is he's falling in your feet. So
So
there's
exactly.
nothing in between.
I know the feet. I mean, how well you say it. Because exactly, I mean, so there is so much more to discover every time you see it. At one level, it's okay. But then again, why would Manikda choose that particular scene of oiling his feet and him falling at her feet, So yes, I mean, again, that also shows another aspect.
And what was it in real? What was the experience of working on these scenes with Chobi Vishash, Sharmila ji? Because he was such a veteran actor at that time.
Because my sister Tinku had already worked with in Kabuliwala.
Okay.
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 Now I got
to the set, and I knew Chobida. We always called him Chobida, and Monju Mashi and Tapan Kaku, and so it was like he was also okay with me, and he was friendly with my mother. So I wasn't in awe of him as such, and I was not really part of the film drum. So I didn't really see Chobida as a great veteran or anything. So I was just another young person, and I treated him, like normally. So I didn't feel or nervous or anything.
Right.
And especially later also. I mean, this was my initial films because I was still a schoolgirl and I would do these films during my vacations. And I was an amateur, so to speak. But later, when I did start working professionally, even then I was in Manikda's film. Manikda was the boss figure and nobody else was. So Manikda made all of us very comfortable. I mean, nobody was in awe of anybody else. He made sure of that. I don't know how he did it, but we all felt very comfortable. We all knew that he's looking after me. If there is any problem, he'll come and tell me. So I just had to trust him implicitly, and I was home.
We were talking about Devi, and there are so many beautiful scenes in Devi with you and Khoka. And we have seen over the years that Satyajit Ray was a master in fetching amazing performances from child actors. We wanted to know how he guided you or briefed you when you had these scenes with the kid, where you were yourself also only 14 and you're working with another small child. So How did that work?
Well, I grew up in a joint family. So I was quite used to a lot of children younger than I, So that didn't come as a surprise because, in fact, the whole setup of Devi, I was quite familiar with those dynamics, কার সঙ্গে কিরম ভাবে কথা বলতে হয় and all that. I was quite familiar because my grandfather was the patriarch, my his wife was the matriarch, and then all these bahus under. So I was quite familiar with that. So working with a younger artist didn't worry me. But, and I remember he altered one line of mine, when he comes and scares me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I say, Ami jodi more jeta.
Yes.
And then he makes me repeat that word. After the first rehearsal, he'd ask me to come and say, Tumi dubar bolo eta. Ami jodi more jeta, erom bhabe bolo. So I think that helped also. So, you kept on getting help from Manikda. So if he saw something and felt that it can be improved or it can be a little bit more intimate or something, he would tell you instantly.
Right. And tell us, ma'am, Devi, the performance itself, it's such a demanding performance. You are so young and you yourself know, about this goddess and all, and later in the film, the way you are wanted to enact. I mean, in real life, how did that impact you?
Yes, actually, in the film, I'm doing all the preparation for the puja.
Yeah.
And later, I'm the one who's being worshipped.
Exactly.
So at some level, she must be aware of that. Yes. So let's talk about how Dayamoi was perceived on the screen. See, here, Manikda uses very large close-ups. And, garland and then incense burning, and her look, her expression on her face, which is like, Battleship Potemkin, like again, you see all these faces and a gaze here and a gaze there alters what the meaning of that particular shot will be. Here, of course, is the same feeling, and it gets worse progressively. And you can almost see that. And first she faints, and then she's sort of there, dejected, and her eyes and her helplessness. And it is again Subroto, Subroto Mitra's photography, which is so different from Charulata. Both are indoors, and the temple is a little bit of outside, inside, but everywhere else it's indoor. But the photography is claustrophobic. It's dark, whereas in Charulata is completely different.
Yes.
So that lighting on the face and how the frame and how I'm looking, how Manikda wants me to, how he sees it, how he frames my face, is actually attributing a kind of emotion to that. If you see it in a very detached fashion,
Correct.
An audience reacts. I'm, of course, sitting like that and looking at that. But lit any other way, it wouldn't have the same impact. In any other frame, without that music, it wouldn't have the same impact. So Manikda heightens my face. Like that face again, behind you. It's, the light on the eyes. It just heightens everything. So the rapport between Manikda and Subroto was immense. What Manikda said, Subroto understood and delivered. I mean, in Charulata, the day scene and night scenes and afternoon scenes in a closed space of the room, you don't feel claustrophobic at all. I mean, you just feel, oh my God, it's a huge place. I mean, you don't feel that there's immobility or anything. Whereas here you feel that immobile face is like a metaphor for patriarchy. It's a metaphor. Her face is like showing the oppression that the society is imposing on her and what it is doing to her. So these are very important shots. And after the film is over, the face of Doyamoi haunts you.
Oh, yeah.
You cannot, so that is the intention. So you're watching somebody being erased, really. Her total personality, her will to survive is just being crushed.
Just this poster of Devi. I mean, I think this is one of the finest posters ever in world cinema. It haunts. It's so beautiful. It's so haunting. I mean, it kind of gives you an eerie feeling.
Yeah.
And one thing that I wanted to mention on record here, that I watched this poster or this, image behind Shubhadeep. It feels, I mean, I can say to the world that I have spoken to the most beautiful person who has been on earth. That's for sure.
Yeah. But like I said, it is Subroto and Manikda's framing. Frame it any other way or light it any other way, it won't be so beautiful. When you were talking about Devi, sorry to go back, you had said that he was criticized.
Yes.
Did you start that? Yes.
Yes.
He said that because he was a Brahmo. You didn't say that, but you implied that he was a Brahmo and therefore Hindu sentiments, they felt that he did it deliberately. But in his defense, I would say that he was not against Hinduism.
Absolutely.
He was against the orthodoxy and this superstitious way or this blind way of looking at religion, number one. And number two, it was, in the process of making the film, in order to understand that devotion, he could have easily taken an Atul Bihari, any other existing song. but he wrote that song himself
Yes.
in order to live with it. So he was not dismissive of everything, He internalized whatever he did, he understood it, he took it within himself, lived with it. And therefore, and then the patriarch was created with his total understanding. So they were all playing a part according to their understanding of that time. They were creatures of that time. And the scene between Soumitra and Chobida, when he says, Chobonari Lila, and he says, Apni Doyake Khun korechen, you've killed her.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really understand. He's completely bewildered that how could this happen? So that was the crux of the thing, not just getting at anything or getting at anything. It is just the enormity of something as whimsical as that, small thing like that, how it can destroy somebody. So how shouldn't we look at it? Shouldn't we try to, make it better?
Ma'am, we will now like to talk a little bit about Nayak.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you mentioned Subroto Mitra, because every time we watch Nayak, we are amazed about the Rajdhani Express set that was created to make the audience feel and believe that it was a real train. But we really do not talk enough about Subroto Mitra, his cameraman, or Bunshi Chandragupta, his art designer, in the first memo of his filmography. If you could share your experiences of working with both of them.
When I started working in Apur Sansar, everybody, Manida became Manida, Bongshida became Bongshida, Bhanuda, Anilda, Durgada, who was the sound recordist, because I would go and sit in the sound van. So everybody became part of the family, and Subroto was Subroto Kaku for some reason. And then, of course, later he became Subroto because he was very young, he was not that much older than I. But at that age, when you're 13 and 23, there is a huge gap, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, Subroto never really talked very much. So he was like a silent, like he kind of merged with the camera. Like he was just there. And during Devi, he used to take a long time to light. So I would just go to sleep. And later I worked with him in New Delhi Times also.
Okay.
So I'll come there later. So at that time, I didn't understand what kind of a genius he was, really. Like I said, he was like a family member, and I knew he was very fond of me. And I did whatever he told me, and I cooperated with him. But later I realized, the bounce light, for instance, his contribution of bounce light. And that came because Bongshida moved the set in, because of the rains, they couldn't shoot outside. And they had to come inside during Aparajito's shooting. And that's when he invented the bounce light, like creating this white cloth on the, on top of the set and using these lights, which Bergman used later.
Right.
In his film. So you can imagine the legacy of bounce light, which every director now, kind of uses. It's like so that was his legacy. And because of the, they were deprived of so many gadgets. So he had to continually improvise. And then he had this vision. Like Manika would say, I want this look. But he created it. And that was a technical medium. And at that time, the Ariflex camera also came to India. And he used the camera very well. It was not because seeing through the camera is always very little difficult because the Ariflex, I believe, the shutters sort of impede the vision. But he was a master, actually. And he was moody. Bongshida was very chatty and very friendly and a great friend of Manika. Subrata was a very quiet person. And all three of them came together when Renoir was shooting River, the River. And so then they met, and then they hatched this plot of making Pathir Panchali. And till then, Subrata, as you know, was just a still camera person.
Yes.
And then he started evolving. And then he worked with Ismail Merchant, James Ivory films, Guru, etc. Then he worked with the New Delhi Times. And so he worked in other films also, but he worked in only 17 films. And 10 of them was with Mahanagar. But the Charulata, the contribution of three of them, Bongshida used to do a lot of research on everything. That historical correctness, the research in Charulata, the sets, again, within a certain budget. He didn't have and I think I said this earlier also during Apur Sansar, when Apur was going for interviews, Bongshida kept delaying the shot. He said, "Ek minute Manik, ek minute Manik." And Mahanagar was getting very fed up because he had to, finish the shoot. He was waiting for an umbrella to keep in the foreground with a little hole in it. And that changed the frame. And when Mahanagar saw it, he applauded. He said, "Yes, that's what I needed." So he, like Uttam Kumar's house, the actor's house, has this huge photograph of himself. An actor. Then he's got overseas in a BOAC bag with electric shaver. Then he's wearing his shoes, which is a little, unusual and little flashy, And Uppu's little room. So everything. So from urban milieu, like Shima Bodho's set. So it's all designed and meticulously researched. And the train, when you're talking about the train, that's an epitome. Like, you cannot tell the difference from the real Rajdhani to the...
You cannot.
Everything in space. And again, with no budget, I keep reminding all of you that they didn't have the budget. To tell, never mind, spend as much as you want. No, it wasn't like that. And then he used this, I believe, this... cardboard kind of thing with cloth and charred wood and whatever too. So he kept on experimenting and getting that result, Bongshida. And Subroto, for the back projection of Nayak, kind of almost fell out of the train, in one-hand camera and, out, shooting those things. Because from my point of view, the view was different. And from Uttam's point of view, it was opposite of that, going this way and that way. So imagine getting it all right and not even the slightest problem. And those days when technology was not as improved as this, to get it, completely correct. The dedication of the man,
Exactly.
So I think it's... and he played the sitar beautifully. Subroto did. But he was a very, very moody person. And in New Delhi Times, Shashi did a horrible thing to him because he had made him shoot day for night. Because all the shots, if you see, our windows are, the curtains are drawn.
Okay. And
which was not right. But Shashi and Subroto were having a little ego issue, And unfortunately, Ramesh, first-time director, couldn't say anything. It was not Mahanagar. So that's what happened. But can you imagine? But of course, it would have taken longer. We would have had to be there at night. But that's the dedication Subroto had. And for Shashi, it didn't matter so much. And that particular shot when his offices were, the dream sequence where the office is burning and Shashi is running, it's just such a fabulous shot. So, I mean, every film you will find Subroto just excels. And it is exactly to the demand of that story while listening to his director and compromising as he had to with Shashi's stubbornness. But he still managed to deliver. And Bongshida likewise, he learned under the best of teachers. He gave me a beautiful Ganesh Pine and Vikash, and which I cherish for nothing at all. Imagine, he just gave it to me. And his house, wherever the plaster had fallen and the bricks were exposed, he had drawn a little bit on that and made it a part of the, like it made it so beautiful.
Right.
So he had that, and he was such a wonderful person and a great pal. And when we would say, Manikda did this, complain about Manikda, he would say, "Na, Manik orokom noy, tome bhul bujhcho." We would say just to get him riled up, we would say some anti-Manikda thing, especially in Aranya Din Ratri's outdoor. And he would say, "Na, Manik orokom noy." So, he was so loyal to Manikda, and he died with Manikda in New York. And he was not even 60 when he passed away. Tremendous contribution. He's worked in Kaliyug, he's worked with Mrinalda, he's worked in Umrao Jan.
Yes, exactly.
Umrao Jan.
Yes.
I mean,
Amazing.
to the T. And did some lot of Islamic research and everything. And then he's moved, and his Kaliyug, of course, again, a wonderful contribution. But he wasn't happy in Mumbai. He wanted to work because Manikda was a big umbrella. And his loyalty or whatever commitment was to his producer, that he had to finish a film within this budget. And nobody really could live within that budget. Manikda charged only for his screenplay and direction. But finally, he went solo. He started doing camera operation. He started wardrobe, music, everything was Manikda's, right? The titles. So because of mainly for economic reasons. So Shubhruto and Bongshida couldn't live on that. So they had to part company.
Yes.
They had to part, and, after all, it all boils down to economics. And and Manikda's, at that time, there was no OTT platform, or there was no other way. And his audience was urban, middle class in Bengal. And although it won awards outside, but his bread and butter came from Bengal. So he had to be mindful of how much he spent on the film. So I think beyond the point, after a while, they had to part company, which was very tragic because the three of them together, the masterpieces like Jalsha Ghar and Devi and Charulata, and Trilogy, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ma'am, if we talk about the plot of Nayak, it's about an actor. There is this superstar actor where the film focuses. But if we go and look at the characters in the train, they are acting at some level, each of them. They are imitating, they are not being their true self. And it kind of gives a feeling that, success or, our work is not always going hand in hand with honesty or ethics. So what do you feel about this subtext of the film? And from your experience in life or working in this industry, what do you feel? Is it really not possible to work with honesty and success together?
Well, you've asked two questions. To answer the first one, Nayak poses a lot of questions and not necessarily provide the answer.
Yeah.
And he creates this space, which is his original screenplay, where different people, different families, are there for a limited space of time. And everybody's got a little story. And they're doing this. Somebody's upwardly mobile, trying to use his wife as a bait to, get some business, and somebody is, is a fan, because everybody, although the actor decides to go take his award, and he wants to travel by train because he wants to get some mind space where he can think and review his life. But he's well recognized, and he is giving them what they want. He's being the star.
Mhm.
And, so the only two people don't react to him. One is Aditi, who treats him normally, and one is that Hindi-speaking young girl in the train.
Yes.
Otherwise, everybody is aware of his presence. And some like him, and some dislike him because of his gossips and, all the gossip column that they've read about him. So, and it has a lot of, raises a lot of moral issues. Like, should you be privileging art over commerce, or should you be privileging commerce over art? I mean, if you give in to, should you be entertaining, or should you be providing, for the benefit of society, should make a film like that? And many other questions, friendship, professional etiquette, and etc., etc.
Theatre, cinema.
Yeah. Are you a puppet? That was a very Godard line. Godard felt that anybody over 25 ceases to be attractive, a woman. And I say crawl and you crawl, and I say jump and you jump. So I think it was reflecting on that remark of Godard's. So, but as a personal, I would say, as somebody who's been in the media for the past 60, almost 70 years, not 70, 60 plus years. So it is, obviously you have a private face and a public face. Anybody who's tasted success, not just actors, anywhere, you have this. And how you maintain the balance is that's how you will be defined. Let's put it that way. If you've balanced it well, you will be thought of, people will think well of you. And if you haven't, then they'll have their own opinion. Now we are living in times of social media. Nayak was not made in the time of social media. Otherwise, imagine those gossip columns and things.
Oh, yeah.
What would they have been, So I think you just have to know, you have to be true to yourself and be aware of your environment and conduct yourself. And that's how you maintain balance. And must know that just being successful is not you. That alone does not define you. There is more to you than that. So you must always be aware of yourself and what you want, and allow that inner voice to speak. And immediately you will know this is right, this is wrong, and this is how I want to conduct my life. If you think just being in the public eye and attracting attention, we are workers, we are actors. And if people like us, we are doing our job well. But a fan is a fan. They really don't really know us, They see one side of us, So to please everybody all the time is just not possible.
True.
So I can understand somebody coming and asking for an autograph. But if I have to catch a flight, or if I have a stomachache at that time, or I'm just painting my nails because my shot starts in 10 minutes time. If I say no, that person will immediately be hurt. Will not understand what I'm thinking and why I can't do it. There are some true fans who really see all your films, but there are some others who just meet you and say, well, we love your work, and we love your Avishkar, and we love your Amanush, and we love your Aradhana. Then they're thinking, the fourth film. No idea beyond that, And sometimes they don't even recognize. So it's part and parcel of being. And I mean, I don't regret it, but I see it as it is.
Yeah.
And you have to be nice to them if you can. And if you cannot, for instance, if somebody's, like I remember when Tiger had just passed, and I was sitting in front of his grave, and the grave was still kacha, you know.
Mm.
And that time, Patodi was given to a hotel chain. So other people were living in it also. So somebody came from behind and asked me for an autograph. I can't even remember what he said. So I said, please give me some space. That's all I said. Anyway, then I carried on. I was thinking. And then after a while, I got up, and we have a house next to it, and I was walking towards it. And two children came running after me. So I stopped and I looked at them, and they gave me a little letter. So I took it and I sort of chatted with them for a little while. And I came to my house and I opened the letter to read. And it said that, don't forget, we are the people who make you. And how could you be so rude to my husband in front of the children? And etc., etc. I was shell-shocked. I said, how could I be so misunderstood? That I was in a private moment. Everybody knows I've lost my husband. How could you be like that?
Yeah.
So for about a long while, I couldn't be. Then I said, let it go. It doesn't really matter. So we carry on. So from her point of view, how she saw it, she wasn't even there. It was only the husband and the two kids. But so people perceive things in a different way. And they have a mindset, you know, they have a predisposed way of looking at stars, that they're haughty, they're like this, or they're very rich, or they're whatever, you know. So to get through to them sometimes is, so sometimes we are not even human beings, you know, for them. And another time, I must tell you the other side. Long time ago, I was coming back from shooting in Bombay, and it was quite late, about 8:39 at night. And I was sort of almost half dozing, and I had my full makeup on. I had this habit of removing my makeup at home and not at the. So I was coming, and then we were stopped at a traffic light, and this scooter was in front of us. He suddenly turned right, and my car kind of grazed him, and he fell down, and my driver went ahead, you know, through the other side, and I'm telling him, stop, I want to see. So I made him stop, and I looked back, and he was running towards me. Okay. So he came and he saw me, and he says, you, please leave just now, because it was a very crowded area and already about 10, 15 people were running towards us. I said, just give me your phone number, give me something so that I know. I said, I'm absolutely all right. You leave instantly. I don't know who he is, but he just backed me off because he knew there will be a commotion. So there are people like that also.
Yeah.
So, you know, so we are there. We can't help it. And we take it as it comes. And we are, at the end of the day, we are very grateful that we have them, because ultimately that means we are doing our job well, you know, if they like us. But you can't really please them all at all times. It's just not possible. It's not humanly possible. So you're true to yourself, you're true to your environment, and you can do what you can. I remember once again, you know, in cricket, long time ago in Kolkata, at Eden Gardens, a young boy came and asked me for my autograph on a 10 rupee note. So I said, I'll take the 10 rupee, I'll write it on your kagas, you know, paper, and give. He was so angry, he tore up my, you know, the autograph I'd given him on a piece of paper. He just tore it and said, you know, threw it and went away. Because, you know, I'd taken the 10 rupee from him. So he was, so I mean, before I could react and, you know, even give him back the 10 rupee, he must have been 16, 17 or something. So you live and learn from these processes. And now I don't care if somebody brings me a 2,000 rupee note, I'll sign and give it. I mean, I don't care. But whether it's, he buys something with it or keeps it, it's not my concern. But I'm just saying there are different kinds of people out there. We are there with our different temperament, different concerns. So sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't work out. There are all kinds of people out there. So you cannot take on so many people. So, like McEnroe can't play, matches. You can play, you're one player, you play that as well as you can. You can't please everybody.
I mean, as you said, that reminds me of this in Nayak itself, there was this girl who looks at Uttam Kumar's character like, I mean, as if he's seeing someone from heaven, someone has landed up.
And when he's smoking and blowing rings,
yes,
and imagine a smoking coming your way, which is a smoke coming your way. It's not a very pleasant thing, but she's loving it. It's lovely.
And when he's drunk at the near the end of the film, she cries.
Yes.
So how difficult it is, always to be looked at, always to be measured and evaluated.
Yes. So you have to create your own private moments. You have to really work towards it. But I think the audience is now, once upon a time, only they could see us at premieres or somewhere. But now, thanks to social media and many things, Salman Khan sort of bikes to the studio and they're visible, Earlier, there was no television also. So they could see us only at premieres. They would stand there so that when we walk into the premiere, they would catch a glimpse of us. So now I think, they know us a little better.
Right.
But those days, there was no other way. I mean, Aurone Din Ratri, we were mobbed at the Ranchi station. And the train was delayed for about 2-3 hours. And somehow our unit members, kind of prevailed and put the crowd. And then I had to go out and they said Sharmila Tagore ki jai or whatever. And threw some mud at the same time. And then we were allowed to leave. And there was a Russian lady who was locked in the toilet for all that time, poor thing. So it was, yeah. And Mahanagar was so worried about the exposed film, because if anything happened to that, we would, all our month's effort would have gone.
Right.
Yes.
It was quite a crazy time, yeah. His politics was not like Rinalda's politics. Like he wouldn't really lead a protest march, or even in his films, the way Rinalda talked, he wouldn't do that. His was an overall point of view, from everybody's point of view. The socially how the country is changing, our sets of our values are changing. Yeah.
What Aparna does in Aurone Din Ratri, I mean, you destroy the male ego for everyone, for the audience as well. I mean, I would include us as well. It's done and dusted the way, because you do not talk and tell the problems. There's a blink of an eye, there's a casual look. Yes. Amazing, ma'am.
And Hari sort of saying, Ami Parbo na. And that line also, Helen of Troy or Helen of Paris,
Yes.
That was also Robida. Yes. So that was also allowed. I mean, allowed, matlab, Mahanagar applauded the addition.
Yes.
And
then you said Kennedy, of course, Bobby. that was so awesome.